I was just telling Kira right before I got up here, this is the first time that I have preached by myself. Matthew and I did a few weeks ago since March. And I got a little emotional just sitting there for just a second because I love preaching so much. And anyway, but I really love it, and I love that you're here this morning. We've got a good crowd, and I'm so thankful for your presence. Matthew introduced this series last Sunday, and I'm so thankful that he did such a wonderful job as we've talked about finding contentment in our lives. And this month we're looking at different aspects of areas that we need to find commitment. This is true too. Contentment in our lives. Matthew did a great job with helping us to be happy with our kids, and I appreciate that so much. And a lesson that I needed to learn. And even at the end of, I don't know what my deal is exactly, but I get emotional. But even at the end of Matthew's sermon last week, when he was talking about that athlete who was running that race, and his father comes out there to rescue him and help him get across that finish line, I got emotional in that part of the lesson because it again teaches me not only do I need to be happy and be there for my kids, but also how God is happy and is there for us and helps us get across that finish line. And I'm so thankful for that, and I needed that lesson so much. It's just been a great blessing, and it was a blessing last week to look at Luke 15 as Matthew brought us through that text to help us to see how we can be happy with our children. This morning, though, we're going to be talking about how to be happy with your spouse, and this is such a relevant topic. I follow Trey and Lee Morgan on Facebook, and they've got their Stronger Marriage Workshop, and they've been doing a podcast since about March or maybe a little bit before that. And during March, they started talking a little bit about the things that are going on in this world and how couples can deal with that. And specifically, they had a podcast that was named Help, I've Been Quarantined with My Spouse. And it's so relevant for us to talk about this. And what's interesting is this is a series of lessons that Matthew and I had planned back in October of last year. But again, it is so relevant for us today. So relevant for us today. I honestly, since I've been here at North Heights, have done more couples counseling in my ministry than just about any other kind of counseling. This includes premarital counseling and just couples that need some encouragement, need some help. Maybe they're working through a certain issue. Couples that go to church here and some couples that do not attend here. But it seems like, I don't know if God is calling me into that kind of thing where I have this face or this ability to be able to talk to couples and help them work through that. I don't know. But God has blessed me with opportunities over the last several years to counsel couples, and I appreciate that. I always tell that couple when we're meeting and talking that this is good for them, but it's good for me. I find myself telling them things and then thinking, okay, now I need to figure out how I can actually do that in my own marriage, because there's a lot of things that I'm telling couples that I'm like, I need to do better in that. I need to be a better husband, and Kira needs to be a better wife, and thank you. That was a little bit of a delayed reaction on that one. No, I honestly, though, I find areas where we can be better in, and I appreciate that so much. Last week, I posted a live video from my backyard. There's the picture of it. And I asked, what are some reasons you are happy with your spouse? And I got so many. I even got comments last night of someone saying, this is a reason that, I hope this is not too late, this is a reason that I'm happy with my spouse. And people gave such great answers. I'm going to mention just a few of them. It was so funny because people talked about how I'm happy with my spouse, or these are reasons that I'm happy with my spouse, because they always take care of me with every need that I have. They always look for the good in what our relationship is. They're positive people. They take care of everything. They look out for our entire family. They provide for us. They love me unconditionally. These are all amazing things. We maybe Somebody says, well, we work so well together as a couple because he is so gentle with me. Isn't that amazing? What I have learned through this is that we have some amazing couples here at the North Heights Church of Christ, and couples that we need to be watching to learn from as well. You know, here's the thing. I want to mention this real quickly. If you are not happy with your spouse, then you can make a change. And I just want to say this, first of all, this is a false statement, okay? The world will try to tell you this. The world will say, if you're not happy with your spouse, then you can make a change. You can change spouses. That's what the world's going to tell you. And you see this all over everywhere, where people say, you know what, we just don't get along anymore. I just don't love him anymore. We're just not compatible anymore. He has his life, I have my life, and so I'm just not going to be happy with him anymore, and so I'm making this change. I'm just going to do that. And that's a false statement. Let me tell you this. Let me give you two other false statements that are so important for us to talk about. God is never going to give you someone else's spouse as your soulmate. Okay? So important for us to learn that. A lot of times people say, you know, and I know people that have been married, maybe they're on their third or fourth marriage. I know people who have married 4 times. They're on their 4th marriage and they're saying, you know, now I found my soulmate. What? It doesn't work like that. God did not design marriage to be where you could say, well, I'm just not happy with this person, and I'm going to be with this person, and I'm going to break up this marriage so that I can truly be with my soulmate. No. God does not work that way. He doesn't have you a soulmate out there that's somebody else's spouse. Okay? So don't be looking. It didn't work like that. You want your soulmate, you marry that person and you stay with that person forever. That's just the way it is. You make that person your soulmate. All right, here's another statement I think is very important. If the grass is greener on the other side, then you need to do some watering on the side that you're on. Okay? A lot of times people say, well, man, look at the way that she just loves him and adores him and takes care of him. I want to get him. I wish I had that in my marriage. You know, I want her because she's this way or this way. It doesn't work like that, okay? If it looks better over there in their marriage or in that couple's relationship, then there's things that you can do in your relationship to make it better for you and your spouse. There's things. Now, I'm not saying, here's another thing, just a quick disclaimer about all of this. This is not fail-proof, okay? I understand that. But I'm just telling you, God designed marriage, and He designed it for us to be married to one person for the rest of our lives. And that's just the way it is. Okay? So I understand that there's some situations where it just doesn't work like that. And maybe at one side of the couple, you know, the husband or the wife will really put a lot of effort into that marriage, and they're doing a lot of great things for that marriage, but the other person just does not care and does not respond to that at all. And I get that. I'm just saying, don't look at somebody else's green grass and think, boy, I want that, and I'm going to take whatever I can get to get that. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get that. No, what you need to do is to say, I'm going to work on my marriage, my relationship with my spouse to make our grass green and greener and greener. That's what you need to be doing. So it's very important for us to first of all, start with that. Now that first statement, the first statement of if you're not happy with your spouse, you can make a change is a false statement that the world says that you can do. But you know what? It's interesting because actually it's a true statement. Let's look at it from a different perspective as well. If you're not happy with your spouse, then you can make a change. Okay? Or changes. All right? The idea is that if you're not happy in your marriage, you can make the choice to be happy. If you're not happy with your spouse, you can make some changes in your own relationship, in your own self, in your own heart to make that relationship better. So in some aspect of this is very much a true statement. If you're not happy with your spouse, you can make a change. And it starts right here in your own heart. It really does. Here's the thing. Here's a couple of quick statements as well I think is important for us to make note of. Marriage takes work. That's just the way it is. Okay? Marriage takes work. Love is not something that you fall into. Love is a choice. I hear people say, we fell in love. We fell in love. Love doesn't work like that. You don't just fall into it. It doesn't just happen. Both of you, if you're in love, both of you chose to be in love. You make that choice to love. I have a book in my library that's called just Love is a Choice. And it talks about decisions that we make in our relationships and how they impact our relationship. And you see, you make a decision every single day that you wake up that you're married to someone, how you're going to treat that person. You make a decision every single time that you communicate with that person, how your tone of voice is going to come across. You make a decision about the kind of words that you're going to make. Love, relationships, these are choices that you make. You don't just fall into it. It doesn't just happen. You have to make a choice. You want to love somebody? Then you have to choose to love that person. There's no way around that at all. You have to choose to be happy with your spouse. That is a true statement. You have to choose to be happy with your spouse. And I want us to turn over to 1 Peter, and I hope if you've not already gone there, maybe you do that right now. Micah read this passage for us here in just a moment. Because I want us to point out some things that are listed here in this text that really help us to see the choices that we can make as spouses so that we can be happy with our spouse and so that we can also make our spouse happy. Okay? So it's choices that you make to make your spouse happy and to make you happy in your relationship. I think the Apostle Peter was happy in his marriage. Did you know that Peter was married? Peter was married. There's even a story in the Bible of where Jesus goes to Peter's house to heal his mother-in-law. They're there together as a family. And so we see that Peter was married. And I don't know, I think maybe Peter was happy in his marriage. Maybe because obviously he writes about this relationship that he has with his wife. Or the way that relationships should be with a wife and a husband. And maybe he's drawing from his own relationship that he has with his spouse. And so he relates this over to us. And now here we are, over 2,000 years later, reading it. And now we can apply it even into our own lives. I think he was happy with his wife. And maybe his wife was even happy with him. I think he does this because, he gives us this formula for a happy marriage. I know he was inspired by the Holy Spirit, but I think that what he is writing for us concerning these relationships was true in his own marriage as well. Here's what he does. He gives us 3 things for wives to do and 3 things for husbands to do. Okay? 3 things for wives to do and 3 things for husbands to do. And I think that, or I believe, more than anything, just thinking about it, I believe when both people in a relationship commit to these things, then you will find contentment in your marriage and therefore will be happy with your spouse and your spouse will be happy with you. Again, I really want to make sure you understand this is, not fail-proof, okay? I'm not saying if you can accomplish these 3 things, and if she can accomplish these 3 things, then your marriage is perfect. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying these are things that I think would lead to a happy marriage. There's obviously more things that we can do, but these are in this text that I want to reveal to us this morning. All right, so wives, first of all, he starts with the wives, and he says to them, you'll be happy with your spouse. That's what I want you to think about. You'll be happy with your spouse, and your spouse will be happy with you when you are submissive. That's what he says. Be submissive. He says this, in the same way, you wives, be submissive to your own husbands, so that even if any of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won without a word by the behavior of their wives. Be submissive. What this teaches us is that wives and husbands really need to assume the right role that God has given you. That's what it's teaching us. Wives need to assume the right role that God has given you. Okay? So when a wife is submissive, let me tell you something, it makes a husband happy. And we need to understand that submission is not a bad thing. It's actually a military term meaning to place oneself under. Now, this is not popular in today's American culture. Maybe not even in our world culture. Maybe some remote places this is acceptable. But right now in our own culture, it's not very popular at all. Okay? We talk about women being on equal ground, and that's true. They are. They're not lesser of a person or anything like that. But when you start using words that she is under him, when you start using words she needs to submit to him, let me tell you, the world does not appreciate that at all. Our culture does not appreciate that at all. But I'm just telling you, here's what the text says. Wives are to be submissive to their husbands. This is what the Bible says. This is what the Lord is telling us. Wives are to be submissive to our husbands. But not everyone, falls in line with that. But you know what's interesting? Is every single person has to submit to a higher authority in some way or another. I think it was LB not that long ago shared something on Facebook, didn't you, Lawrence? You remember? The umbrella? How God is over us, and then you've got Jesus, and then you've got husbands, and then you've got wives, and then you've got children. All this. Everybody is submissive to somebody else. That's just the way it is. We in our lives right now, we are to be submissive in the culture around us, in this country that we live in. We are submissive to our governing authorities. That's just the way it is. And the Bible tells us to be that way. The Bible tells us to be submissive to our governing authorities. And so every single person is submissive to somebody else in some way or another. You work for somebody, you have a boss, you are submissive to that boss. You're supposed to be anyway. And the Bible teaches us that we are to be that way. The Bible teaches us that those who are master over us, if we are employed by someone, we are to do what they ask us to do. So in every aspect of our lives, you are submissive to someone else. Children are submissive to their parents. We are submissive to our bosses. We are to be in subjection to our shepherds, our elders here at North Heights, because they are looking for our spiritual well-being. They, in turn, are submissive to Christ, as all of us are. And even Christ, wasn't He submissive to His Father? In Philippians chapter 2, Paul begins to say in verse 5, have this attitude in you which was also in Christ Jesus. He goes on to talk that even though he did not regard equality with God a thing to be grasped or held on to. In other words, he was willing to leave the glories and the power and the dominion of heaven and come to this earth and be a bond slave, to be a servant. Jesus was submissive. Everybody is submissive to somebody in some way or another. And God has ordained it to be where the wife is submissive or to be submissive to the husband. Within this context of marriage, God has given the leadership role to the man. There is no way around it. No way around it. One of the goals that a wife should have is to help her or help him exercise this leadership, this authority that he has in the family. The way that she does that is be in subjection to him. Help your husbands fulfill the role that God has given them to be the leaders. And if you start, you've heard it, if you start wearing the pants in the family, that's a problem. And that is not acceptable according to the Scriptures. Help your husband out by letting him fulfill his leadership role. Don't take on that authoritative role. at all. Again, this does not mean that one role, leadership role or the wife role, is more superior than the other one. It's only that each one of them has different functions. Okay? You have different functions. A wife who is truly submissive is a joy to her husband. Husbands love that. They love it. A wife should find contentment. A wife should find happiness in fulfilling her God-given role for her husband. And it is really how she serves the Lord. That's what we're supposed to do. You want to be happy with your spouse? You wives, be in subjection to him, because he will take that leadership role that he's supposed to have and lead your family. And the whole goal is that everybody in your family makes it to heaven. That's the way it's supposed to be. Wives, be happy with your spouse by being submissive to him. Wives, you need to be happy with your spouse, and your spouse will be happy when you are chaste and respectful. Again, it says in respectful behavior. So this is very important. Really what it is that they are going to just develop this right attitude that they should have. A right attitude. When a wife is chaste, she makes her husband happy. Now this word chaste is very important for us to clarify exactly what it means, because we don't talk about it very often. We don't use that terminology very often in our normal lives. But this word chaste means that she is sexually pure in word, in dress, and in action. In every aspect of her life. Everything that she says, everything that she wears, and everything that she does, she is sexually pure. That's what it says. That's what the word chaste means. And chastity is an attitude that she would employ in her life. It's everything that you say and everything that you do. It's her mindset. And spouses, it's so amazing because spouses are free to express themselves sexually in any way that they want to each other, but exclusively and privately with each other. Both spouses should avoid dressing provocatively. Both spouses should be careful in their affection with other people. They should not give any kind of intimate gesture or exchanges or even conversations with somebody else that is of the sexual nature, but they should be restrained. That's what he's asking for the wives to be. Sexually pure. Where you are committed to that one person. Now it's amazing because the word to be chaste, she is going to be restricted in how she deals with everybody else, but she is free to express her sexuality with her husband with no limitations. No limitations. But it is exclusive. Wives and husbands, they need to feel free, but they are to be restrained with anybody else who is not their spouse. This is truly what being happy with your spouse is meant to be. And it goes right along with it's just being respectful. When a wife is respectful, it makes her husband so happy. A man is happy with his wife when she has this attitude that is marked by this discretion and this prudence and with wisdom. That's the kind of attitude that she has. A man is happy to have a wife who does not make a fool of herself or of him with any words or emotions or actions. She needs to be respectful. Chaste and respectful. So wives, it's not just about your attitude that makes you happy with your spouse or your spouse happy with you, but it's also when you are appropriate in your attire. And he gives an example right here in verses 3 through 6. He says, your adornment, what you wear, what you put on, must not be merely external, braiding the hair, wearing the gold jewelry, or putting on dresses, but let it be the hidden person of the heart. If you're an underliner in your Bible, that's the important phrase right there to underline. Okay, the hidden person of the heart. It's an important part of it. It helps us see the point of what he's trying to make. It says, with the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. Now, what does this mean? What is he telling us that she needs to be? Well, men are attracted. It's just the way it is. We are attracted to what we see on the outside. Okay? I can't imagine that when Eve was presented before Adam, that he was like, okay, yeah, no big deal. No, I don't think that's the case at all. You know, he had seen all these other animals, and the Bible talks about how these other animals were paraded in front of him, and he names each one of these animals. And I'm sure that when he saw the gorilla, he thought, well, that's a really impressive animal, but she's not really all that compatible to me. And I'm sure when he's thinking, oh, he sees that porcupine, he's like, yeah, I love this animal. This is a great animal, but I don't want to get intimate with this porcupine. That'd be ridiculous. But when I think that when this woman is presented to him, God puts Adam to sleep, he takes a rib from his side, and when he presents this woman before him, he goes, wow. Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, she shall be called woman, because she is from man, right from me. Wow. I think that's the kind of response that he had. Men are attracted to what we see on the outside, absolutely. But you need to be happy with your spouse, and you need to be attracted to what is on the inside. That's how you're going to be happy with your spouse. This passage, what Peter is saying here, does not teach us that it's wrong to look good. No, it doesn't talk about that. And that's the point that he's making. Notice that he says, you don't want it to be merely external, okay? Braiding the hair, wearing gold jewelry. You know, you can put on those things that make you look good, but you don't want it to just be merely that. Your adornment doesn't need to be just based upon that. Notice what he says. But let it be here's our word that we've underlined, the hidden person of the heart. Okay? That's what your husband wants to see. He wants to see what's here. He wants to see who you are on the inside, more so than what is on the outside. And let me tell you something, folks. The world doesn't want to see everything that you've got on the outside either. Be careful what you wear, wives and husbands. Be careful. The world doesn't want to see it. If you would wear that in the bedroom to be intimate with your husband, there is no reason for you to be wearing it swimsuits and those kinds of things. But that's not what this passage is even talking about. You know what he's saying? He's saying, look for the heart. Look for the heart. It's not even about the external. It's right here on the internal. Okay? Look for the heart. That's what he's looking for. That's what's going to really make the husband happy. That's what's really going to make her happy. And if your wife is wearing inappropriate things, you need to tell her. Don't let her put that on Facebook. That's reserved for you and you alone. You need to tell her. Let's not put that up there. That's not appropriate. I'm more interested in what's right here in your heart. Let the world see your heart. That's what's going to be important. When a wife realizes that the beauty is on the inside of what God sees as a precious, wonderful thing, it makes her husband happy. She displays it for her husband, the hidden person of the heart. She displays for her husband the gentle and the quiet spirit. She displays for her husband the example that is left for her from the other holy women of God. Matter of fact, in the context of what he says, in verse 5, he gives an example of how Sarah behaved and how she made Abraham happy with her attitude. She displays that same kind of attitude. That's what's going to make your husband happy. She displays for her husband her choices to do what is right without any fear at all. Verse 6. So important for us to see that. So wives, this is what you need to do. You need to be submissive. You need to be chaste and respectful. And you need to be appropriate in your attire. Now, husbands, you're going to be happy with your wives if they're doing these things. But listen, he doesn't leave off there, and I don't want to leave off there. It'd be really easy to say, okay, and now the invitation. Everybody come forward. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to talk about husbands now. But only one verse, only one verse is dedicated to husbands. Verse 7. Maybe just because husbands have a shorter attention span. I don't know. Maybe so. They just need to be told real quickly in one verse what they need to do. But those three things are right there in this one simple verse. You will be happy with your spouse as a husband, and your spouse will be happy with you when you husbands are living with your wife. Husbands are living with your wife. Verse 7, verse 7a, the very beginning of it. You husbands, in the same way, live with your wives. Now, I know we're thinking, well, okay, great. I'm going to live with my wife. Duh, of course I'm going to live with my wife. That makes sense. Some husbands think that living with their wives just means sharing the same bed and the same house with them and being married to them legally. But that's not what this text is telling us. The word with here means closely aligned to or settled with. Okay? That's what it's telling us. So when he says that, live closely related to, closely aligned to, settled in with your wife is what he's telling us. The mistake that many men make is that they become passive in their marriages. And they stop making the home a priority in their lives. They stop aligning their life with the lives of their wives. If you're going to live with your wife, this means that the home life is the same. It's perfectly aligned together. Sometimes men get other things in front of their relationship with their wives. Sometimes it could be a job that could take over. Sometimes hobbies. Sometimes sports or social media even. They make that part of their life so important that they have forgotten what it really means to live with your wife. When a husband makes managing the home important, it will make his wife so happy with him. In 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 4 through 5, here Paul has given Timothy the qualifications for an elder. And it says that elders are to be husbands who are managing their households well. A lot of times we talk about how the wives are to manage their homes, and that's true too. We've talked about that before. There's other passages that talk about the wife making sure that their home is nice and it's a good place to live, and she manages that. She helps raise those children. She may help prepare meals, maybe helping keeping a house clean, and just managing, organizing everything about the home. But here again, this is a partnership between a husband and a wife. And if you truly want to make your spouse happy, and if you truly want to be happy with your spouse, you husbands need to be living with your wives to where you make the home a priority. That you manage that household so well. You understand exactly what it means to manage the household. You know what is happening in the home. You monitor it. You take priority. You know what's going on in each person in their life that lives with you in your home. You manage your household. You're not oblivious to everything else that's going on. You husbands need to pay attention. We need to be looking at every aspect of what's going on in the people's lives that live with us in our homes. You know what's happening. You know what needs to be done emotionally for your children and for your wife. You know what needs to be done spiritually for your children and your wife. You know what needs to be happening physically with your children and with your wife. All those needs are being met. You manage your house. That's what it means when he says you live with your wives. Your life is perfectly aligned with hers. It is settled in to where you know what's happening in everybody's life. You as a husband need to cultivate relationships with the people that live with you in your home This means that you have a special bond with your children, and maybe even on not just like children as a whole, but this child may need this emotionally, and this child may need this emotionally. And my wife needs this emotionally. And so you're looking to see how you can meet those needs in every aspect of everyone's life. You plan for the growth of other people in your family. The individual who lives with you, the wife, the kids, you see how they can grow and mature spiritually in Christ, and you're trying to meet that need. You're involved in every aspect that's happening in the home. You're not just coming home to be served, and then you maybe go out and enjoy your hobbies or your interests. You retreat to your man cave and watch TV. You don't engage with your family. No, it's going to take some work. And that's really the whole point of this. The management and the development of the home is the husband's top priority. This is what he is judged on. A wife is the happiest and feels wonderful when her husband lives with her in the home and is managing the growth of the family to God's glory. He just says, live with your wives. There's more to it, isn't there? A lot more to it. You see this awesome responsibility that husbands have? Oh, we need to take it serious. We have got to take it serious. Husbands, you will be happy with your spouse if you'll learn to live, align with her in your life together in the home. You'll be happy with your spouse, and your spouse will be happy with you. Number two, when you are understanding your wife. Notice what he says in the middle part of verse 7. He says, in an understanding way, as with someone weaker, since she is a woman. This means that you need to learn and know who she is. Oh my goodness, this is somewhat humorous because men have been trying to figure this out since the beginning of time. All right? This is easier said than done for us to try to understand our wives. Oh my goodness. I preach this and don't think for a moment that I've got any ounce of understanding of my wife. Not at all. I'm still learning. But the point is that the husband is in the process of understanding his wife and knowing who she is. And that's so important for us to see this because in the original translation, the original language, it means to live with her according to knowledge. You live with your wives, it says in an understanding way, you live with your wives according to knowledge. Women just are more complex than men are. Just the way that God has intricately made you. You are just a more complex being than we are. We are cavemen in our heads. And you women are a superior, amazing being that God has created. You're more complex. But you know what? That's what we like about women. That's what intrigues us. When us husbands, we look at our wives and see how complex she is, we're like, wow, that's amazing. It's a wonderful thing. But it requires effort for us to understand them. The best compliment your wife could ever give you is not how big and how strong you are. The best compliment that she could ever give you is this. You know and understand me so well. Kira and I, we've been married 17 years now this year. And, it gets better and better. And there's so many times that we will do something or say something or plan something or make a decision about something, and she'll say, we share a brain. We share a brain. And it could be something so simple like, I thought we could have tacos tonight for dinner. And she's like, well, I've already got it going. You know, something said, well, we must share a brain because we've already been thinking that way. You know? That's a great compliment that husbands can receive. You want to make your husband happy? You start telling him, wow, you must know me. Wow, you understand me. Oh man, that will just make your husband think, whoa, woo boy, I'm starting to understand her. Me, caveman, I understand wife. You know, you start figuring that out. Oh, that's a great thing. You know what? It intrigues him so much that he's starting to understand you, that he wants to know you even more. And he's going to work even harder to understand his wife. He's going to know her even more. It's so important for your wife to know that you are truly interested in knowing her and not just interested in getting something from her. She's not your maid. She's not to fix dinner for you and set you. I mean, she can if she wants to, but that's not her primary job. All right? She is your life partner getting you to heaven. She's not your mother. Don't make her always pick up the laundry and the dirty socks and the dirty underwear in the bedroom. You step it up and you treat her as your wife. Get to know her. You're not just looking to get something from her. You're not looking to just have somebody that you have sex with. You're not just looking for somebody who is this roommate either. You want to have somebody that you know and that you understand and that understands you. The things that you do to make her happy are really the things that you do to get to know her. Let me challenge you, husbands. You need to share and listen to her dreams and her problems and the things that have gone on in her life. And you need to make a plan to share those dreams and let those dreams be your dreams as well. That's how you understand your wife. Let me tell you something else. You need to be completely 100% transparent and open with your wife. I tell couples when I'm giving them premarital counseling or even counseling, maybe they're just needing some encouragement in their marriage. I always tell them, you need to be completely open and honest with each other because you are one flesh. You are one flesh. God has put you two together, and there should be nothing that you hold back from her or her from you. This can be just as simple as having conversations with her about things that are going on in your life, emotions that you're having, passages that you've read that have meant something to you, spiritual growth that you are enjoying. It could mean things that are going on with you in your work life. It could mean things that are going on in your social and family life. You share every aspect of who you are with your spouse. There should be absolutely nothing hidden from each other. Practically speaking, I always tell couples, make sure that you're even down to you're sharing passwords together. There should never be a computer or a phone that has a password that your spouse does not know. Period. It keeps you both accountable. Okay? So important to do that. Make sure that you are sharing every aspect of your life with your spouse. Every password, everything that's going on in your life, you share it with her. Be completely open and just completely open and transparent. That's the word I was looking for. Transparent with her. Clear. There's nothing hidden at all. You need to be ready to forgive and to be compassionate with her. You need to be sensitive and appreciate her needs and look to see ways that you can meet her needs. These are all great activities that help you get to know her and her to know you in the same way. And this is what's going to, consequently, it makes her so happy. It makes her so happy when you share everything. Working on these types of things will increase your appreciation of her and her desire for you. Which really, if she's desiring you, it ends up making you happy as well. You make your spouse happy and she makes you happy. Now the fourth thing, the last thing I want to mention today is you husbands, if you want to be happy with your spouse and your spouse happy with you, then you need to be honoring your wife. The last part of this verse says this, verse 7, the last part, says, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. The word here, this Greek word that's translated honor, means worth. It is something that is precious. Okay? So think about it. You show her worth. You show her as something that is so precious to you. There is no greater value to you. And so you give her honor and you show worth that she has in your life. That's what He's telling us to do. You honor her. Your wife, your spouse, has a precious role in your life. And you demonstrate this with great actions. She is just as precious as you are in Christ. And that's what he says here. You show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life. A fellow heir. You both are trying to get to heaven. And you show her worth, you show her honor. Because you're both trying to get to the same place. You're both trying to honor the same God. That's what you're trying to do. She has maybe a different nature than you, a different role, but she is absolutely equal with you in the value that we find in the Christian life. Absolutely equal. And so you show her as a fellow heir of the grace that you enjoy. That's how you can make your spouse happy. Not only are you doing that, but you're going to work hard to not be a hypocrite before God. And He specifically says, so that your prayers would not be hindered. And this is a warning to us, men. Can you imagine your prayers being hindered? I don't know exactly what that means. If it means that maybe our prayers are not heard before God, if we're not showing honor to our wives. But I'm not willing to take that risk, are you? Ooh. I want my prayers to be heard. I want God to hear it. And if I'm doing something that is going to hinder my prayers when they come before God, I need to fix that thing in my life and not do it anymore. Here he specifically says, you show her honor as a fellow heir of Christ so that your prayers will not be hindered. I don't want to hinder mine. That serves as a great warning for us. We've got to learn to make sure that we're treating our wives the way that we need to treat them. We need to understand how to properly honor our wives. Recognize and respect her as a weaker physical vessel. Her physical frame might be smaller than yours. She's not as strong as you are. Even emotionally, she may not be as strong as you are. And as that weaker vessel, you take care of her. And you treat her the way that you need to treat her. We need to understand how to properly honor our wives. Recognize and respect her as that weaker vessel. Tell her how much you appreciate who she is. A lot of times it's real easy for us to say, boy, I really appreciate all the things that you do. You know, and wives are amazing people, man. They can get a lot of great things done. They can multitask, and they seem to really get a lot of things done, really take care of us. And it's real easy for us to say, boy, I appreciate you meal planning. I appreciate you fixing the meals. I appreciate you doing the laundry. I appreciate you making sure the kids are taken care of. I appreciate you make sure we've got clothes to wear and those kinds of things. I appreciate you paying our bills. We can list off all those things. But I'm telling you, you tell your wife how much you appreciate not what she does, but you learn to say, I appreciate who you are. That's understanding who she is in the heart, in the hidden heart. You begin to understand who she is. You compliment her and encourage her in her work. Tell her what a great job she's doing as a mother and as a wife. Appreciate her and appreciate her ideas and her input. Treat her with respect. And especially, you treat her with respect in front of others. Wow, this is so important. There should never be a time that either spouse talks bad about the other person to anybody else. Don't you ever do that. Don't you ever sit there with your group of friends and start complaining about your wife. Or you wives, don't sit there with your group of friends and start complaining about your husband. He may be a low down, no good fella. But I'm telling you, don't you dare talk bad about him, and don't you dare talk bad about her to anybody. You respect. There should never be a time that you say something bad about your spouse to anyone else. Even in times of anger or confrontation, you be right there with her. So important for us to do that. You treat her with respect. Demonstrate to her that she is precious by offering her small gifts. You give her surprise outings. You give her notes and cards, and maybe go away for the weekend. Do things that are special to her and get to know her. A woman who is confident that her husband honors her above others and is continually reminded of this by his loving attitude will more easily and happily submit to him in Christ. She wants to take that role. She wants to be submissive when you honor her the way you're supposed to. And you treat her with great respect. Marriages can be made in heaven, but we are responsible for the maintenance work. Yes, I think God can put two people together. I think through His providence, He puts people together. I think He did that for Kira and I. I met her in Denver, Colorado. I'm from Greenbrier, Arkansas, and at the time maybe had 2,000 people that lived there. And I moved from, when I was 18 years old, moved from Greenbrier, Arkansas to Denver, Colorado with 3 million people that lived there and started attending a preaching school. And she was a member of the youth group. We started hanging out and doing. We went out on a date on December 21st, 2000. Went to go see the movie What Women Want. Mel Gibson, you remember that one? I know, it's funny. We went to Red Robin. You know what I told her? I'm going to share this. You okay with that? You know what I told her? I was in preaching school, and the Red Robin restaurant has a bar and a grill. And I said, hey, feel free to order any alcoholic beverages you want. I'm driving tonight. I'm in preaching school. And immediately she starts laughing. And she's underage. She'll never forget that joke. And she said, you had me from then on. Just because I was funny. And I try to make her laugh every single day. Even if it's just goofy stuff. I think God put me there. And I think that because my preacher at the time, Bob Turner, went to Bear Valley. And I only knew Bear Valley because of Bob Turner. And so when I was thinking about going into preaching school, Bob Turner said, you should go to Bear Valley. I don't know who encouraged Bob Turner to go to Bear Valley, but somebody encouraged Bob Turner to go to Bear Valley. And the decision that Bob Turner made to go to Bear Valley, the decision that Bob Turner made to tell me to go to Bear Valley, and the decision I made to go to Bear Valley led me to meet her. God can put people together. But you know what? It takes us working to keep us together. You're going to have to work, and you're going to have to, if you want to find contentment, if you want to be happy with your spouse, you're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to. The secret to finding contentment, are you ready? And being happy with your spouse is found in the notion when you make your spouse feel happy to be your mate, you empower him or her to make your life happy too. That's it. You make them happy, and they're going to make you happy. If both of you are working towards that, you're going to be happy. This morning in my Bible class on Facebook Live, I taught from Philippians chapter 2. In verse 4, he says, you need to be looking out for the interest of others more so than the interest of yourself. That's a good lesson for the church. And it's a good lesson for spouses. You look out for her interest, and she looks out for yours, and you'll be good. Wives, if you want to make your husbands happy, be submissive to him. Cultivate the right attitude of chastity and respect, and concentrate on the inner woman rather than the outer one. And husbands, if you want to be happy with your spouse, learn to live with your wives and make the house a home and manage it well. Understand and learn more about your wife and know her like no one else knows her. Honor her as this great and precious gift of God as you both work together to inherit your eternal reward. Be happy with your spouse. It's a choice that you have to make. A lot of people in the Facebook Live video, when they made comments, I said, tell me reasons that you are happy with your spouse. So many people made comment there and even texted me later on and said, I have chosen to be happy with my spouse. I choose to do that. And that's right. You have to make the choice to be happy with your spouse. The key thing is you don't want to be this guy. You don't want to be sitting there walking along with your spouse and you see somebody else and you turn your head and you go, huh? And then that other person sits there and goes, why in the world are you looking somewhere else? You have to choose to walk right alongside your spouse. But you know what's interesting about this? Is a lot of times we are that guy right there. Not just in our marriages, sometimes it's in our marriages. But we're that guy right there a lot of times in our spiritual relationship with God. We're that guy. And we start looking at everything else, trying to find contentment. And true contentment, true happiness is only found when we are absolutely committed and devoted to God. This right here is exactly the story of man from the very beginning of time. Where God had created this wonderful place for man to live, and we start looking at everything else, and man eats from the forbidden fruit and turns their back on God. Israel faced this same situation where God wanted them to be His people and He was to be their God and they were to have this great relationship together, but then they turned to everything else around them. And there's probably people here this morning and you're that guy. And you've turned away from God. And you're looking at everything else. Trying to find contentment. Don't look anywhere else. Turn back to God and follow Him. True contentment is when we're committed to our spouses. And true contentment spiritually is when we are committed to God. If there's someone here this morning that needs to respond to the Lord's invitation, maybe you need to start that commitment, having your sins washed away in Jesus' blood by being baptized, fully immersed for the remission of your sins. You're forgiven of those sins and you live a life that's completely committed to Him. Or perhaps you're that fella that has turned away and you need to come back and get your life right again. Whatever we can do for you, come as together we stand and as we sing.